Hi, my name is Allison, and I've been coming to Trinity since December of last year. I've always gone to church, and my parents have instilled that in me. So I always had a relationship with God. But what I think has happened in the last few months is that with this illness, I really focus more on me. I think a lot of times with my prayers and my conversations with God was always on how do I help others? You know, how do I help my son who had learning issues, or how do I help my dad who was ill last year? But to say, take my worries, take my stress, because my illness that I'm in right now is extremely stressful. And I think that's what the last few months that I've really, actually this last month, has really woken me up to all that God can do because He loves me. And that, I think, has really changed me. And then also just reading the Bible. I've always wanted to read the Bible, and I've always wanted to really read it with someone who can explain it, because I can read it, but I don't necessarily understand it all the time. And I think now I see all of God's power and His glory that I never saw the big picture. I only saw the little picture of, God bless my family, God, please get my husband home safely on the plane. Those very small details. Now it's the much bigger picture about me and my salvation. On the table of that test, it had been so stressful, that test, and then once I passed it, that really moved me. I just said I need to pray, because I just felt like, wow, that was big. Finally, one of the nurses said, "You'll know if you don't pass." And I'm like, "Oh." She's like, "Your heart will stop if you don't pass." It's like, oh, because they didn't really tell me that, right? I just thought, oh, they're testing my heart. So then I was like, I never asked again. And so finally, when it was all over, I was just so overwhelmed by it, because I prayed and I was just so like, please be with me, be with me, dear Lord. And it was like, it was such a relief, right? That I passed. and it's funny because prior to this, the EP doctor, so he's the electrical part of the heart, the EP. And we were talking before the procedure, and he's from Colombia. And I said, do you pray? And he's like, obviously he's a strong, devout Catholic, right? And he said, oh, yes, I pray. And I said, well, would you pray for me? And I'm lying on this table. It was on kind of high up on this, it was quite high, it wasn't just a regular table. And I'm like, okay, we need before I leave, I need to pray. And they're like, okay. It was funny. I just thought, I just needed to, And that's kind of where that's kind of when I was like, really like, okay, there's something happening here, there's something going on, because it just made me do it, I certainly wasn't planning on it, but I still think about that day. It was just so like, it was such a, I don't know, high stress, and then, So I am confident today. I am definitely confident today that Jesus is my Lord, and that He died on the cross to forgive me of my sins. And I'm just so thankful for that. I feel hopeful. I have more hope and more joy. And that's one thing that was hard to find, was joy, especially some of these days I wasn't finding joy. And now I understand where that joy is, and it's with God. I was baptized as a baby, and I didn't realize that there was any real difference until the pastor spoke about it a few Sundays ago, and I thought, I want to do that. I want to do that as an adult, to show God that I'm serious, and that I do really want to have a closer relationship, and I do want to give myself to Jesus.
Allison, it's such a privilege to be able to do this with you today. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because of your faith in Christ, it's my privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Buried with Christ in baptism. and raised to walk in newness of life.